Hello, my name is Madeline Russell, and today I'm going to be talking about high fructose corn syrup. Within the past 30 years, the average amount of sugar consumed by Americans has increased from 15 grams per day to 75 grams per day. But you might think, oh, no big deal, I love sugar. Sugar, at least types of sugar, are necessary for our diets. We're consuming unparalleled amounts of added sugar. Why is this so bad? Increased sugar is bad for many reasons, as sugar raises your LDL, or bad cholesterol, but also because of the type of sugar that is being added. The increased consumption of sugar in the diet has led to numerous health problems, including diabetes, and has greatly contributed to the increasing levels of obesity in the United States. It is also important to note that some scientists disagree on sugar being the issue. They say it is poor nutrition plus a lack of exercise plus increasing calories that are contributing to these issues. So, how has this happened? How has the rise of sugar occurred? Well, in the 1970s, scientists began to notice a strong association between high fat items, cholesterol, and heart disease, very similar to what we're seeing now. Thus, um, ins- manufacturers began to switch to low fat items, which meant increasing the amount of sugar added to beverages to increase the taste of the beverages, since low fat items don't taste very good. To supply for this increased demand of sugar in most products, producers began switching to using high fructose corn syrup. There are several advantages to this, including that high fructose corn syrup is extremely cheap to make and is much cheaper than table sugar. It's also more palatable and acts as a browning agent. While fructose does come in small amounts naturally, such as in different types of fruit, that's literally what fructose means, is fruit sugar, it was never eaten excessively, as most sugars were not, up until the present day. So, what is high fructose corn syrup exactly? High fructose corn syrup is made from cornstarch, which is initially entirely composed of glucose. Through a series of industrial processes, enzymes are added that convert over 50% of the glucose molecules to fructose. The actual process that happens involves taking two components of cornstarch, amylose and amylopectin, and adding heat, chemicals such as caustic soda or HCl, and enzymes to break the starch down into glucose and fructose. Alpha amylase, produced by bacteria, hydrolyzes the cornstarch into dextrins and maltodextrins. Amyloglucosidase, produced by fungi, breaks down dextrins into glucose, and then glucose isomerase conglutes the glucose into fructose to make high fructose corn syrup. This infographic on the side shows a simplified version of this process. So what's the difference between table sugar and high fructose corn syrup? They have the same chemical formula, except sucrose is consistent of 50% glucose and 50% fructose, whereas high fructose corn syrup tends to have a little bit more fructose than actual glucose. So wait, aren't they essentially the same thing? If it's going to the body that way, won't it be metabolized the same way? Well, essentially, yes. The most common type of high fructose corn syrup is high fructose corn syrup 55, which only has a marginal ratio more fructose, 55%, than regular sugar, which has 50%, so it does not have many health differences. However, when high fructose corn syrup has a higher ratio of fructose than regular table sugar, like high fructose corn syrup 90, which is 90% fructose, then it is really bad. While fructose does come in small amounts naturally, like we mentioned before, it was never eaten excessively, as almost all sugars were not until the present day. The biggest issue overall, however, is that we're consuming too much added sugar, and high fructose corn syrup is just one of the most predominant sources of where we are getting sugar from. The molecular properties of fructose determine how sweet it is and thus why it is predominantly used as a sweetener. Fructose and glucose are stereoisomers, which means that they have the same chemical formula. However, the carbonyl group is on C2 instead of C1. It's flipped with the OH group. Additionally, the sweetness of fructose and all sugars arrives from their chemical properties. Recent research has shown that what makes one monosaccharide sweeter than the other is the length of the H bond the sugar molecules form with other molecules, such as water, which means that there are only minor differences in the stereochemistry that lead to the differences in polarity. The liver has to convert fructose to glucose in the liver before it can be used by the bodily cells for energy, so it is not quite as efficient as using just glucose. When there is too much fructose in the diet, the liver begins to convert fructose into adipose tissue, or fat, instead. But wait, isn't this what we were trying to avoid in the first place by switching to lower fat diets and replacing fats with sugar? The exact mechanism of fructose to glucose conversion is unknown. However, recent research has begun exploring using chemical catalysts instead of enzymes to catalyze the reaction, as enzymes are much more expensive to use. A proposed mechanism of glucose to fructose isomerization and vice versa from one of these studies is shown above. Additionally, the molecular properties of fructose also contribute to how it's formed and why it is particularly dangerous as a type of sugar. The shape of fructose is such that it can be expressed as a 6-carbon linear chain with a hydroxyl and carbonyl groups. In solution and in crystalline form, it is most commonly found in a ring structure. Fructose is extremely soluble in water with a solubility of 370 grams per liter. The polar OH group on the end of the molecule forms interactions with surrounding polar water molecules. The energy released from this interaction is enough to cause the fructose molecule to be dissolved. The high solubility of fructose makes it difficult to crystallize from water and accounts for its ability to absorb moisture and retain it, a property useful for cooking and why we see a lot of fructose used in common everyday cooking elements. In conclusion, the molecular properties of fructose make it sweeter and cheaper than table sugar, so it is replacing a lot of regular table sugar in foods. High levels of fructose contribute to multiple health issues, including increased risk for obesity, cardiovascular disease, and blood sugar levels. However, this is just a symptom of the issue. All sugars are bad, and it's not necessarily just high fructose corn syrup's fault. And we have to consider how much additional sugar that we are eating in general. One of the ways that we could potentially combat this is by starting to eat our sugar by eating more fiber and less added sugars. Here are my references that I used for this presentation, and thank you for watching.